what can AI do for us as the church that way round? How can we use it? We've already heard a bit about Magisterium AI. How can we really use it in order to improve what we do, in order to help us to flourish and to live out our calling?
I think from my perspective as a parishioner in the church, I think there's several ways AI could really benefit our parish priests. So we know that there's a shortage of priests. It's something the church talks about a lot. There's a huge amount of work that parish priests do, and priests in general, I'm sure, but focusing even on my knowledge, that is unseen, and there's just so much that could be potentially automated, or things. I'm just thinking of simple things like requests to do with weddings or hundreds of emails that come in. Of course, you need the human touch to deal with that, but I think when you have busy parishes, some of us don't see all of the work that comes in to a desk, like maybe hundreds, even thousands of emails a week that somehow, I don't know, maybe Father Michael or Matthew can help with this, developing a program to maybe filter these kind of things where then the priest can focus on the most important work, which is being with the parishioners, which is being in confession and those sort of things. I don't see at all a future for, of course, for the priest being replaced by any kind of chatbot. We've seen in China, there's a very small Buddhist priest called Zhang who can answer questions related to Buddhism. He's in a physical form and can sort of drive around in the monastery and talk to you, and it's very sweet, but it's not necessarily serious. And I think Father Michael knows about, I think there was a Catholic priest Justin was laicized, yeah. And I think in Germany there was also an AI priest that was in a bus that was driving around at one point. But no, I think hopefully for tasks that are not necessarily to do with the human, it would leave a lot of time for that important pastoral work, and I could see a benefit there.
So I'm thrilled to hear from Father Dominic that we have some job security going forward here in offering the sacraments. But I think that there's something profoundly beautiful about that, because it touches on the fundamental truth that our faith is an incarnational faith. We follow a God who took on flesh, who deemed to become one of us, and who continues that incarnation in a certain sense through his church, through a visible church. Why are we so excited about a new pope, Pope Leo? It's beyond the hype and the sensation and the pomp and circumstance. There's this profound joy in knowing that we have also a visible head, successor of Peter, because God himself has willed to have a visible church, because he's serving not mere beasts, but not angels either, not pure spirits, body, soul composites, us, fleshy human beings. And so the Word made flesh serves, builds up fleshy human beings like the ones who came out here to grow together in a visible community. And so there's something indispensable about that. And we experience that all of the time. No matter how beautifully produced or choreographed an online mass is, there's nothing that can replace being there, present, and participating fully, bodily, actively, consciously in that great mystery, that invisible mystery that's communicated through visible signs and symbols. That's at the core of who we are and our faith. So in that sense, I think we can be confident that these AI tools ought always to be used to facilitate and aid those bodily incarnational moments, those communal encounters together. And Jen's given some wonderful concrete examples of that allow priests and all members of the mystical body to fulfill their vocation of cultivating this communion, this embodied journey together as a pilgrim church. So I think that when we have that clear, who we are, who the church is, then these tools can be more easily used to facilitate those encounters. And I think of how many questions about the faith that can be handled through Magisterium AI and other systems that are properly trained, because as much as I would enjoy explaining the nature of Lectio Divina to 100 people individually, personally, they can go to Magisterium AI or other systems and receive a very good summarized response that's based upon the wisdom of Pope Benedict XVI, Saint Benedict, and other reliable sources. Just as throughout the history of the Church, people have consulted spiritual text, spiritual writing. St. Edith Stein had a profound conversion experience spending a night reading the book of the life of St. Teresa of Avila. So she had never met Teresa of Avila in person, but reading that book prompted a conversion and allowed her to begin a whole journey of the faith. So we should use these tools and these instruments for formative purposes and help people to transition from those tools, books, Magisterium AI, whatever it may be, into that embodied church community to have the kinds of experiences of the sacraments and of the living body of Christ that can only be found in person.
Well, I'll just say I'm not a fan of anthropomorphizing AI. So, I mean, I don't think Catholic AI in particular should be anthropomorphized in any way. I think it's good that people recognize that it's just a system. It's a tool. And I think and we tried this with Magisterium AI. If you try and get it to, here we go. But if you try to get to hear your confession, it's just not going to do that, right? And so I think guardrails are an important part of this, so that the actual AI is trained to understand what its limits should be. So that's one thing. The other thing, I want to say is I think it's important, and this is something that we're actively working on. I think, companies like Hallow, which is the world's #1 prayer app as well, that we're working with, are looking for opportunities we call off-ramping. So someone may start their journey with Magisterium AI, so they're asking questions, and sometimes these questions, and I should say that all the users are anonymized, so we don't know who these people are, but some of the chat sessions are quite wild, right? Where someone is actually getting mad at the chatbot because the chatbot is basically expressing what church teaching is on something, and they're outraged by this, and they end up getting in this big argument. But what's really kind of rewarding is at the end of that when you see, okay, all right, well, I kind of understand. I guess I can respect that. And so I think this is something this is one area that chatbots have a lot to offer. Systems like Magisterium AI, they're patient. They're infinitely patient with people. And the other thing to remember is that it's not really the chatbot interacting with the person. What they're really interacting with is basically magisterial teaching, right? They're interacting with the fathers of the church, because essentially what's happening is these AIs are just pattern matching answers. And so when you prompt it saying, okay, this person's asking this question, what theologian, philosopher has said something meaningful about this area, and how can I synthesize it together and give it back? So in that way, it's a really, I think one day it'll be extremely powerful apologist for the faith. And I think it may lead a lot of people on a path, to hopefully conversion, whether that be deeper conversion to the faith or actual conversion to the Catholic faith. But of course, it has limits. And so for us, what we're trying to figure out is, as someone is interacting with the AI, how do we let the AI know that this person's ready to actually go down and talk to an actual priest? How do we off-ramp them? And one of the big challenges that we have right now, this is really a challenge I want to put out there because we don't know how to solve this yet, is if someone has never actually spoken to a Catholic meaningfully about the faith, or a priest, or stepped into a Catholic church, but for some reason they've come to some kind of intellectual, spiritual conversion through Magisterium AI, they're ready to take the next step, where do we send them? Once upon a time, it was send them to the parish, send them to the parish. Sometimes the parishes aren't ready, right? And so what we're trying to figure out is there some way to expose them, to the great, diversity and expressions of the faith that are out there? How do we expose? We don't know where someone's at spiritually or what will resonate with them. Maybe they love to express the faith charismatically. Maybe they prefer the Latin Mass. We don't know. But I think that's a real challenge. So in this way, what we're hoping to do is, by exposing them to different dimensionalities of the faith, we can help connect them to a human community who's deeply vested in that, and they can go further, go deeper in their faith, connect to other human beings who are passionate about the particular area, and then maybe when they're ready, that community can introduce them to the right parish. So these are things that we're now starting to think about as we're having now millions and millions of people who are starting these journeys. And I personally think that Catholicism is about to come roaring back. So I think that we will start seeing parish priests even busier. And so I think these tools are going to actually, it could be very useful in helping people take some really important, profound steps.